what I found was that a lot of the people that I worked with, they would often say, okay, yeah, but so I get triggered, and in the moment, I don't know what to do. So I react and then I feel regret. Or I get triggered and I react and I know I'm right, but nobody in my house is happy, right? So we have this thing. And so I'm thinking like, well, how can I help these people to shift? How can I help these parents to shift when they're with their children? So I created this worksheet, and I'll send you the link for it so people can get a copy of it. But basically what it does is I use the 4 elements. So you look at the triggering experience. So your child yells at you. I actually have an example on here that I used, and that's very similar. So my daughter said, and this is actually on the worksheet so people can look at it. My daughter said, mommy's dumb, after I told her she couldn't have something. Now, when I was growing up, if I called somebody in my house dumb, that would probably be the last thing that I would say for a while. But because I'm evolving the parenting landscape, that's not how I responded. But what I did was I reflected on, and this is something, let me say this too. This worksheet is helpful, especially so you can do it in the moment, but I find it's most helpful in the moment when you've done it outside of the moment. So let's say you're thinking about this moment where I just screamed at my kid. I tell people, print out a bunch of these. And when you find yourself triggered late at night before you go to bed or in the morning or whenever, just sit down and fill it out. And what you'll start to do is you'll notice patterns. You'll start to notice patterns in what comes up for you when you're triggered. And then you'll be able to, in the moment, shift what you're doing. So you won't have to carry around sheets of paper for the rest of your life. Okay. This is starting to train our brain and bring the subconscious into the conscious. And once that happens, you don't need the sheet. So my daughter said, mommy's dumb. And so the first thing is we check in with the earth element, which is our body sensations. So how was I feeling in my body? Well, I had tension in my shoulders, my jaw was tight. And then we can go to the air, and air symbolizes our thoughts. So what thoughts were coming up for me? Well, honestly, the thoughts I was having was, you can't talk to me like that. And she's so ungrateful and mean. And I have absolutely no control. So it's like, these are the things that are coming up in my head. And what feelings? Water symbolizes our feelings. So what feelings did I have? Well, I felt angry, helpless, shame, confused. And fire symbolizes our actions and our intentions. So what intentions guided your actions in this triggering situation is the question. So for me, my daughter called me dumb. I had tense in my shoulders, tension in my jaw. I thought things like, I've got no control. She can't talk to me this way. Who does she think she is? My house, blah, blah, blah. I was feeling angry and helpless and shameful and confused. So when all of that comes together, right, there's the trigger triangle. When I have these thoughts, these emotions, and these body sensations, we haven't gotten to the trigger triangle, but that's part of what this is about that I'll talk about in a moment. How do I tend to respond? So for me, I could do things like I can yell, which is the action, to make her respect me more, which is the intention. So I'm yelling to make her respect me more. Right? Action, intention. I could put her in timeout, which is the action, to teach her she can't talk to me that way, which is the intention. Right? So all these things, so I'm becoming very aware. So in this one sheet, I'm aware now of what happens when I'm triggered. I've now brought the subconscious to the conscious. Now I'm aware of my body sensations, my emotions, my thoughts, how I tend to show up. That is a lot of information that I can use to start transforming how I show up. So the last part is I asked myself, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is my elemental level of frustration, or ELF? So how intense are those sensations, those thoughts, and those feelings? 1 being I'm cool as a cucumber, and 10 being back up, I'm gonna blow. And the importance of that is it gives us some insight into, wow, how triggered am I in this moment? So my kid said, mommy, I'm dumb. That's a problem. But if I'm at a 9, clearly there's something going on here. Clearly this is bringing up something else for me. So that's 1 more data point. And then the last thing I can do is I sit still, close my eyes, And I really allow myself to sink in to the thoughts and the sensations and the actions, really allow myself to get into that space. And then I think of a time, when is another time in my life when I felt these thoughts, when I felt these sensations, when I felt these emotions. And I just allow my mind to float there. I don't try to control it. I don't try to think my way into it. And I see what comes up for me. And when I did this activity, what came up for me was, when I was about 12, I told an adult that another child was bothering me. The adult told me that I didn't matter as much as the other child, so I just needed to deal with it. Right? So for me, my child saying mommy is dumb really is triggering something that happened to me when I was 12. And so my body and my brain are reacting almost as like I was when I was 12 years old. So now what I can do is I can say, all right, can I bring water to that 12-year-old, right? Can I bring some compassion to that? And then check in to how I feel. Like, okay, my daughter said mommy's dumb. How am I feeling now? Well, it's not as big of a deal. So from that space, I can act versus react now, because I've done some work to transform that trauma. I realize now what that connection is, and I can move to another level where now I'm acting versus reacting. So I know there was a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, it's great.
There's at least one part that I want to clarify and ask you about. Your reaction when you go through the whole worksheet is a thoughtful reaction. It's kind of like a self-aware reaction, rather than the yelling or kind of putting your kid in a timeout sort of reflexively.
Yeah.
Correct? And what would that thoughtful reaction look like? What would that self-aware reaction look like? What would you do? You give yourself that empathy, and what would you do for your child to respond to her? Mommy,
so after I've done that, or the next time it happens and now I'm...
Either.
Okay.
That's
Maybe
interesting.
both.
Actually, both. That's very interesting. Actually,
Would there be a difference? They might be the same thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So for me, it came down when I got to that point of, okay, it's not that big of a deal. You know, the next time she said, I don't think she said mommy's dumb, but she said something, you know, it might've been something like, you don't love me, or I'm mad at you, or something, you know, and I was able to say, wow, you know, that's really sad for me to hear. And I understand that you're really angry right now. You know, I hear that. You're really angry right now, aren't you? Or you're really sad right now. Like, I was able to bring her water in those moments because I had it still within me. My water wasn't depleted, right? So I was able to be with her in that moment. So it allowed me to stay in that space of compassion because I wasn't as triggered. Like, when we get triggered, that's the quickest way to evaporate all our water. It's just like goes away, you know? So, but when we can sit in that moment and say, okay, I've worked with that, I understand where that's coming from, then we're much more likely to be able to bring water to whomever we're engaging, but especially our children. Now, if I've already done it, and then let's say I fill out the sheet and I'm like, oh, crud, you know, okay, maybe I should have handled that differently. Then you just go and you fix it, you know, as much as you can. You go and you say, hey, you know what? I think I made a little bit of a bad choice. I was really angry, and I can see that now. And I think this is what I wish I would have done. Or, you know, can we talk about what happened, depending on how old the child is? And what's beautiful about that is I swear I apologize to my kids, even to this day, frequently. I'm always, oh, I'm sorry about that. Oh, probably should have thought about that differently. And it's interesting because I'll see my kids do it. Like, just yesterday, Autumn had said something to me. I don't remember what it was. And then she came in later and said, Mommy, I'm sorry I did that. That wasn't very kind, you know? And I'm realizing, like, she got that because we modeled that for her, you know? So when you make amends with your children, yes, it repairs the relationship, but it also teaches them a way to deal with all that energy that comes up within them.